And I grew up here, and me and my boys are down visiting my parents for the first week of summer break.
Very good. And how old are your boys?
My little one's about to turn 5 here in July, and then my older son is 9.5.
Oh, so you stay pretty busy.
I do. My boys are really good, but they are boys, so, it's full speed all day.
Yeah, well, that keeps you young, right?
Yes. I love them, though. They keep me, they keep my perspective right, and they keep my priorities straight. So.
Well, Rachel, what I'd like to find out from you today, okay, is I know that you're recognized as a certified grief recovery specialist, okay, and what I'd like to do, though, and I know you have a company called Teamotions. I want to get a little bit of your backstory so people can understand how you became, how you got into that arena of grief recovery and how you became certified at it. Can you take us down that road a little bit?
Absolutely. I was really just living a very average life. I was a young mom married to an active duty pilot in the Marine Corps. We were having children, and I had a 2.5-year-old son, and I was pregnant again with our next baby, which turned out to be twins, which was the surprise of our lifetime. And so we were just planning and expecting our new baby girls to arrive, and I had some complications happen. I went into premature labor. My daughters were born, and a couple of weeks after they were born, they passed away. And I went from sort of living the normal, average existence of most people, just being a mom and a wife, and into my whole world changed. The rug got pulled out from under me, and I was grieving, and I had to figure out what to do next. And I had no idea. I was completely lost. I was overwhelmed with pain and frustration, and I went to a place I had never experienced before in my life. And very quickly I realized that grief is a very misunderstood part of life, and I was sort of grasping at straws to figure out how to get healing, how to find healing. I got a lot of pressure to get on medication. I didn't want to do that, and I'm not commenting about medication. I'm just simply saying for me, in my experience, I wanted to lean into the grief. And my son at the time was 2.5, and I felt like he needed a mom that could heal and be whole and present, and not a mom that was just going to be sad or checked out for the rest of his life. And all of this was happening. All of these thoughts were going through my head in the throes of the worst pain I've ever felt. It was just, 1 minute I'm planning a baby shower, and the next minute I'm at my daughter's funeral picking out a font for their headstone. And I just remember telling myself, what now? To make a long story short, I spent about a year trying to figure out how to answer that question. And I was drinking a lot of tea at the time. Tea was really the only thing that comforted me. It was quiet and warm and soothing, and you could pretty much find me at any point in the day with a cup of tea in my hand. It was like my security blanket. And one day my sister was visiting me, and she said, "I wish there was something we could put in your tea that would make you feel better." And that was sort of that light bulb moment where I thought, that's exactly what I need to do. I need to create emotional well-being teas that will actually help comfort and heal people during times when life isn't so easy. And in that process, I also started really digging deep into what grief is and how to recover from grief, and what does healing really mean, and what does it look like, and sort of answer these questions. And that's when I also became a certified grief recovery specialist. And so now I do ton of educating, helping people understand what grief is and what it isn't, exposing a lot of the myths of what it means to heal, how to define even what emotional well-being is. And then we integrate our teas, which are these amazing blends of both tea and adaptogen herbs that have these real emotional support benefits, into the healing process and understanding how to overcome grief and disappointment and pain, and just kind of all the things in life that throw you a little bit. We have mild things on a daily basis, but sometimes we hit the wall and go through some pretty profound, difficult times. And we need more than just ideas to get us through. We need tangible support. We need a plan. I'm all about the action plan. And the tea company, Teamotions, as well as my certification, help bring all of that together in one place.
So do you go out and speak to groups of people?
I do, very often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been invited. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I've been invited into, women's groups, into even businesses, into any place where emotional well-being is a priority. And then I teach these skills, and I expose the myths, and I give them a tangible action plan on how to live their life with emotional well-being, because it's a whole lifestyle shift. It's a whole perspective shift. You can't just do one thing. There's no manual that says, 5 steps to emotional well-being, or, take this pill and be emotionally well. You have to learn these skills and then apply them, and it's the application that makes all the difference.
So, I run networking groups. Tough Talk Radio Network has radio shows, and we have business networking groups. And I've been blessed to be able to do both. And I got to where I'm at today through a long journey with a disabling disease. And that's struck me down a few times in my life. In the last 7-8 years now, since 2008, I had to reinvent myself all over again. And who knew that I would be doing internet radio? It wasn't a box you could check off when I was growing up as a kid. And now I'll be 59 in another week. And, so I just never really understood why I kept getting slapped around with this disease at the age of 19. Well, I'm really happy to say that I'm able to look back and understand, almost thankful that I had gotten that situation in my life so that I can be doing what I'm doing today, which is help spread that message on how people can help each other by just building relationships. Now, I'm sure the last thing that you would trade all this back to have your daughters, and I totally get that. But as you're going through this process, can you see the power that you've taken over from your lost to now? I mean, do you see how that made you something?
I was just talking with a friend, about that last night. And one thing we were talking about is how it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction of society and our culture to sort of look at tragedy or suffering or pain and say, well, there's a reason for this. We don't know that reason now, but we will. And then later in life, when blessings come, when we're thankful for things, when life gets good again, we try to apply that and go, oh, well, this is the good, this is the reason, this is why. And what I teach in my classes is that you don't actually have to do that. It's apples and oranges. You can say, I can say, I hate that my daughters died, and I will never be thankful or grateful that my daughters were born and suffered and then died, really before they even got a chance to live. Nothing will ever make me say that somehow was worth it or I'm grateful for it. But what I can look at is say, I made certain choices when faced with that experience that have now led me to a place where I'm experiencing grace and mercy and blessings, and I'm thankful for that grace and those mercies and those blessings. And I don't have to use one to justify the other. I can hate the bad, and I can still love all the good, because that's what makes it a miracle. And we don't have to use one to justify or explain the other. And I think that people find that very empowering because they'll resist the good, they'll resist the healing, they'll resist the blessings because they think that means you're saying what happened was okay, or that's really a good thing in disguise, or there really is a reason. Well, I don't really know. I don't know exactly how God's working this all out. I know He's sovereign and He's good, but I don't get it. I can't wrap my brain around it. But what I do know is my blessings are real and my suffering was real. And I choose to acknowledge the pain of my suffering and how terrible and bad losing my girls was. And I also choose to embrace and love all of the good things and all of the blessings and all the reasons why I laugh and smile and have to be thankful. And I don't cancel out or lessen or negate either one because somehow they're connected. Like, life is complicated, it's long, We all go through things and we don't know exactly why we go through them, but we do have a choice in how we respond. And that's probably the number one point that I teach and focus on, is that personal responsibility, even in the face of suffering and tragedy, is we may not be able to control all of the things that happen to us. Control is an illusion. We can't control most things, but the one thing we can control is how we respond to what happens to us. And that makes all the difference, because someone could have their children die, or someone could have had a disease that they got or an illness when they were 19, and based on how they responded to that, had a completely different outcome than you have had. And there's a sense of ownership where you can sort of take a little bit of power back and go, I can't control this and I can't control this. 99% of things I can't control, but I can control my response. And I equip people with the ability to respond in a way that creates healing, that creates forward motion, where they can build an action plan that they can apply, so that even though something terrible happened that wasn't in their power, they can control their response to move forward into a healthy, fulfilling life.
I love the fact that you said that you need to take action, because
absolutely,
that word is so huge in so many ways. And when we talk about grief and emotional things that go on in our lives, it's not only from, God forbid, loss of a child or some tragic thing. In our world, especially in our world as entitled as the people think they are, everything's an emotional upset. So they're always going through this process. A business owner struggles to get to the top. A parent struggles to get their children raised and through school properly. We all have these struggles, but one of the things that you said is control is an illusion. We have no control. So sometimes if you kind of release some of the control that you're trying to have over things, they just kind of work out on their own. Do you ever work with people on that?
Yeah, well, what I talk about is, at the end of the day, we are responsible for our own emotional responses. So nobody makes us feel a certain way. Nothing makes us feel, we give our power away when we think that way, when we have that kind of perspective. And so I teach people to sort of take personal responsibility back and say, I can't control my spouse. I have a very difficult marriage, for example, and I can't control my spouse, but I can control how I respond. And that's not a guarantee that makes everything work out. Like, there is, learning to handle and recover from loss is such an important life skill, because we're only taught how to acquire things. We're not taught how to lose things. And we love to to tie everything up in a pretty bow and go, if you just do these 5 things, you get what you want. But that isn't always the case. Life is unjust. You may do everything right, and you may choose all of the best responses, and you may work completely hard and stay committed, and it still might not go the way you want it to go. So the question is, well, what then? How do you handle that? If everything just sort of works out in the end, we don't really need these life skills. It's because things oftentimes don't actually work out exactly as you want them to go, that we need these very real and tangible life skills of how to recover from loss. And loss in all categories: the loss of a business, the loss of a dream, the loss of a person, of a relationship, or even a death, the loss of our health. Like, life is just full of these losses, and they do help to make life rich and meaningful, in the sense that we have to choose to be bigger people and not live in a superficial world. We learn perseverance. We learn how to create a value system that's worth fighting for. But at the same time, we're giving people false hope, or providing them with unfair expectations if we tell them, if you just do all these things, it's all going to work out. The question is, what do you do when it doesn't work out? And providing a community of support and providing an action plan for people is what makes the difference when they go, okay, what now? My daughters, I took care of myself. I was healthy when I was pregnant. My son before them was an amazing pregnancy and birth. When they were born, they got the best medical care in the world. They could not have been with better doctors. I had access to anything better. And their bodies just failed. And Ellie died when she was 7 days old, and then Aubrey when she was 13 days old. And when they passed away, I knew that was the line. They're never coming back to me, not in this life anyway. And so no amount of praying, no amount of wondering, no amount of hoping, no matter what emotional response I chose to have was not bringing my babies back in my arms. And so that was my question. Okay, what now? Because this isn't, if I do this and do that and try this, it's not going to reverse what's happened. This is done. This is final. I don't get